Welcome everyone to the Top Prime Rankings channel. Our journey today takes us back to the tumultuous times of the early 20th century, a world gripped by the throes of the Great War, a conflict so vast it was dubbed the war to end all wars. A myriad of nations, tangled in alliances and enmities, bore witness to the devastating power of modern warfare. Yet amidst the smoky ruins and the bitter taste of loss, there was a glimmer of hope. The year was 1918. The key players, the Allied powers, including the United Kingdom, France and the United States, sought to broker peace with the Central Powers, led by Germany. The stage was set in the Grand Hall of Mirrors in Versailles, France. As the world breathed a sigh of relief, a treaty was signed. But was it truly a harbinger of peace or the seed of another war? June 28, 1919, the Hall of Mirrors, Versailles, a treaty is signed. In the lavish surroundings of the Palace of Versailles, the ink of history was set to paper. The Treaty of Versailles, a peace document meant to end all wars, was signed. But instead of fostering reconciliation and stability, the treaty was a seed sown deep into the soil of resentment and victimization. The treaty was particularly harsh towards Germany. The victors of the Great War, particularly France and the United Kingdom, sought to prevent any future threats from Germany. Thus, the treaty imposed punitive conditions on the defeated nation. One such condition was the War Guilt Clause. This clause held Germany and its allies solely responsible for the war and its devastating consequences. This was deeply humiliating for the German people, instilling a sense of injustice that would fester for years to come. The treaty also demanded extensive territorial losses from Germany. The once proud nation had to cede territory to France, Poland, and other neighbouring countries. These territorial provisions fueled feelings of resentment among many Germans, engendering a desire for revenge that would echo through the decades. In addition to the territorial losses, Germany was also burdened with heavy financial reparations. These reparations were intended to compensate the victors for the costs of the war. However, they placed an immense strain on Germany's already struggling economy, leading to hyperinflation, unemployment, and widespread poverty. In the grandeur of the Hall of Mirrors, the German delegates placed their signatures on the treaty. They did so with heavy hearts, knowing the severe implications it held for their homeland. The treaty was seen as a dictated peace, a peace imposed by the victors, rather than a fair resolution of the conflict. Germany, burdened and humiliated, was left to grapple with the harsh consequences of the treaty. The seeds of resentment had been sown. The Treaty of Versailles, meant to secure lasting peace, instead laid the groundwork for another, even more devastating conflict. The echoes of this fateful day would reverberate through the annals of history, leading the world once again down the path of war. In the aftermath of the treaty, Germany was a nation in turmoil. The Treaty of Versailles had imposed considerable burdens on a country already staggering under the weight of a devastating war. The economic impact was immediate and brutal. Germany was held accountable for the war, and the financial reparations demanded were astronomical. This economic noose tightened around the country's neck, leading to an era of hyperinflation that made the German mark practically worthless. The average citizen found themselves caught in the throes of an economic crisis unlike anything they had ever experienced. Imagine a loaf of bread costing billions of marks. Savings were wiped out, pensions became worthless, and the middle class was decimated. The once thriving German economy was reduced to a shadow of its former self, leading to widespread poverty and unemployment. But the impact of the treaty reached beyond just the economic. The German people were left feeling humiliated and victimized. They had lost significant territory to France, Poland, and other neighboring countries, territories that were not just land, but a part of the German identity. This loss of national pride and the sense of injustice was deeply ingrained in the German psyche. They were a proud people, reduced to penury and made to bear the blame for a war that was far from being their sole responsibility. This feeling of being unjustly targeted, of being the scapegoat, it festered. It bred resentment, a resentment that was not just against the nations that had imposed the treaty, but also against the German government that had accepted these terms. The Treaty of Versailles, in its attempt to ensure peace, had instead sown the seeds of anger and discontent. In its quest for justice, It had created a sense of injustice, and in its effort to end a war, it had set the stage for an even greater conflict. The harsh terms of the treaty had created a fertile ground for resentment and anger. With the stage set, the curtains were about to rise on one of the darkest periods in human history. In the throes of economic and social chaos, Germany became ripe for extremist ideologies. The harsh conditions of the Treaty of Versailles had left the German nation humiliated and victimized. The sense of injustice, coupled with the loss of territories to neighboring countries, ignited a flame of resentment and longing for revenge. This was the backdrop against which the rise of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party took place. Hitler, a charismatic speaker, tapped into the deep-seated anger and frustration of the German people. He blamed the Treaty of Versailles, along with the Weimar Republic that had agreed to its terms, for the economic hardships that the nation was facing. Hitler's rhetoric resonated with those who felt cheated and betrayed by their leaders, and his promise to restore Germany's former glory was a beacon of hope in desperate times. But it wasn't just about restoring lost territories or economic prosperity. The Nazi ideology was rooted in the belief of racial superiority, and Hitler used the resentment fostered by the Treaty of Versailles to fuel this dangerous narrative. He painted a picture of a proud, pure German race being oppressed by foreign powers and internal enemies, and promised to liberate them from these perceived injustices. The rise of the Nazi Party was facilitated by the economic turmoil and social unrest that followed the Treaty of Versailles. The reparations imposed on Germany had led to hyperinflation, unemployment, and widespread poverty. These conditions made the German people susceptible to extremist ideologies that promised a way out of their suffering. The Nazi Party's rise to power was not an overnight event. It was a gradual process that took advantage of the chaos and discontent that the Treaty of Versailles had sown. Hitler and his party capitalized on the grievances of the German people, using them as a stepping stone to power. The seeds of resentment sown by the Treaty of Versailles had begun to bear bitter fruit. The rise of extremism in Germany, culminating in the ascendance of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party, was a direct consequence of the punitive and uncompromising terms of the treaty. The stage was set for the even greater catastrophe of World War II. The Treaty of Versailles, rather than resolving tensions, left many issues simmering beneath the surface. The treaty, signed in the aftermath of World War I, was intended to secure peace in Europe. However, the harsh terms it imposed on Germany not only failed to stabilize the continent, but also sowed the seeds for future conflicts. The treaty's territorial provisions, which included the loss of German territory to France, Poland, and other neighboring countries, were deeply resented by the German people. This sense of injustice and victimization, combined with the economic hardship caused by the reparations imposed on Germany, created a climate ripe for political extremism. The punitive terms of the treaty were also a source of disillusionment for many Germans. They saw it as a dictated peace, a peace imposed upon them without their consent. This perception only served to fuel their resentment and a desire for revenge, a sentiment that was later exploited by Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party in their rise to power. Moreover, the treaty failed to address the underlying tensions that had led to the outbreak of World War I. The complex web of alliances, rivalries, and territorial disputes that had characterized pre-war Europe were largely left untouched by the treaty. Rather than fostering reconciliation and stability, the treaty only served to deepen these divisions and set the stage for further conflicts. In the years following the signing of the Treaty of Versailles, Europe remained a continent on the brink. The economic, political, and social instability created by the treaty were the perfect breeding ground for the rise of totalitarian regimes, ultimately leading to the outbreak of World War II. The peace promised by the Treaty of Versailles was, in reality, a mere illusion. The treaty's punitive terms, its failure to address underlying tensions, and the resentment it fostered among the German people, all contributed to a climate of instability and conflict. Rather than securing peace, the Treaty of Versailles merely set the stage for the next, even greater, global catastrophe. The Treaty of Versailles, intended as a peace treaty, had far-reaching unintended consequences. Its harsh conditions, which placed the entire blame for the war on Germany, were deeply humiliating and fostered a sense of injustice, victimization and resentment among the German people. The loss of territory to neighbouring countries only added fuel to these simmering resentments. The reparations demanded of Germany crippled an already struggling economy, leading to hyperinflation, unemployment and widespread poverty. This economic turmoil created an environment ripe for the rise of extremist ideologies, such as that of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party. These groups capitalized on the grievances of the German people and their desire to overturn the treaty's terms. Moreover, the treaty failed to address the underlying tensions and unresolved issues that contributed to the outbreak of World War I, leaving Europe politically divided and economically weakened. These punitive and uncompromising terms ultimately planted the seeds of resentment and instability that led to World War II. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the Top Prime Rankings channel for more insightful videos.